right, BG and Sal on the fan. What's going on, everybody? Yeah, another Yankee win. Yankee fans happy today, but I got to tell you, what's interesting here, Sal? Mm-hmm. So I can already tell you what's going to happen today. I already know what's coming. Yankee fans will enjoy this little mini renaissance, 5 straight wins, stabilize the season, and then Yankee fans will automatically shift to crushing Cashman. Now, I understand. It wasn't an all-in, wasn't a home run, wasn't a, knock it out of the park, kind of a trade deadline, whatever. But to me, and I don't know anybody that's been more critical of Brian Cashman than me. And by the way, Brian Cashman will join us in 20 minutes here on the show.
Oh, that should be interesting.
That could be a little spicy.
Are you ready for that?
I'm always ready. First 2 gots, now we got Cash. No, just kidding. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And while I've been critical of Brian Cashman, I have been. I won't hide that. I would like somebody to point out moves, because you have to react to it this way, that Brian Cashman could have made that he did not make that will prevent the Yankees from being true contenders. What did he not do that somebody else did?
Okay, before I answer that, and I could just give you Flarity or Tanner Scott. I mean, the Dodgers went big, the Padres went big, the Yankees did not. If this weren't in the midst of now a 5-game winning streak, when you and I last left doing shows together, I know you were out the last couple of days and I was here by myself. Last week, you were saying they need to go big. Even after the Jazz trade over the weekend, you tweeted, great, there needs to be more.
Yes.
And what's happened since then is that the Yankees have turned it around with their own guys, whether it's Verdugo, Austin Wells, Gleyber Torres. Obviously, Jazz has helped that, but it's been everybody else contributing. So what's happened, the difference is not the acquisitions that they made, but the Yankees playing better baseball. If they were playing the way that they were a week ago or 6 days ago and had this type of deadline, what would your reaction be then?
Well, it's hard. It's a good question, and it's a fair question.
Because this is just 5 games. No,
I understand that.
But I'm not getting sucked in again.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it.
Understood, but it's not just 5 games. Remember, there's been basically multiple chapters to this season, which has been interesting. And listen, I've said a lot, and I believe this, that the Yankee team we saw to start the year is not really that true Yankee team. And the Yankee team we saw languishing for the better part of a month is not the true Yankee team. The answer is generally somewhere in between. Same for the Mets. We'll get to them later as well. But I look at it, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand people wanted more. Crochet, Vlad Guerrero, Skubal, whatever. Right. There's only so many big moves to make. I get it. And my biggest gripe, my biggest issue with this Yankees lineup is that once you got past really 3, but, now that Stanton's back, whatever, once you got past theoretically 4, it just dropped off the face of the earth. My thing now, and I know Jazz is going to cool off. He's not going to hit 30 home runs the rest of the way. Yeah. But there's a lively, young, dynamic, fast player who can play multiple spots, which is the obvious. But more importantly, Sal, what this really does, if DJ's dead as a doornail, guess what? You're not playing. If Gleyber Torres is 1 for 20, guess what? You're not playing.
Who's playing that instead of him?
But the biggest issue with the Yankees up until the acquisition of Chisholm is that they had nowhere else to go. There's at least now a level of accountability where if somebody is cold and frigid and they're just not producing, you're not playing.
LeMahieu's going to be on this team. Gleyber Torres is obviously going to be on this team. Those are 2 big problems.
Yeah.
They're also relying to a certain extent on Giancarlo Stanton to stay healthy. They're relying on Verdugo to produce. They're relying on Gleyber to produce or Austin Wells to produce. Guys who have been doing it, which is why the Yankees have been playing much better. And by the way, let me just say, while they look unbeatable again, we've seen this before, they were very fortunate Saturday night, and they were very fortunate against the Phillies as well. So now they won those games. You give them credit. Obviously, they won those games. Nobody's taking that away from them. Let's not make it like everything is fixed because of 5 games where they were the worst team in baseball or one of for 8 weeks or 7 weeks.
No, I don't think everything's fixed. I do agree with that. It's not fixed.
The starting rotation right now is as bad as it's been all year long.
But there's also a lot of answers, too. And there's questions. Listen, I understand this. The thing about this baseball season, show me the perfect team. There is
Well,
none.
there isn't.
There isn't. The Orioles, who are, so young and so dynamic, dynamic and have all these prospects that are half a game better than the Yankees. Their rotation, I mean, it's middling. It's middle of the road. And I understand. Do you really trust Clay Holmes? Not really. Do you really know what's going on with Garrett Cole? Not really. Do you really know what they're going to do at some point with Luis Hill? I don't know. Does he become the closer? Do they sit him down? What? They almost traded Cortez. Schmidt's on the way back. Obviously Rodon, he's up, he's down, he's hot, he's cold. I mean, you know what the deal with Stroman is. Better first half than second. This is a very imperfect team. But it's also a very imperfect league. The American League's not even that good.
Agreed 100%, which is why there's no reason why the Yankees couldn't find themselves in a World Series and winning a World Series. However, would you feel better about the team today if they had, let's say, Flarity on the roster?
I probably would. No, but I probably would.
And that's kind of the point. Like, why could the Dodgers do it? Why do the Padres load up and go for it? And believe me, we'll get to the Mets in a little bit. But with the Yankees, they're held to higher standards and expectations. And every year, it's the same thing. They go in, but not all the way in. And yes, a part of me understands that too. And I'm not saying that they can't win the World Series because they didn't get Tanner Scott, because they didn't replace Clay Holmes, because they didn't get another starter. But their odds would have been better. Their chances would have been increased had they gone all in. And there were moves to make, and the Yankees didn't make them.
There's also this belief here, and I understand that we've been conditioned with Mariano, that the ninth inning's got to be perfect. It's got to be a 12-pitch, 3 shattered bats, a little 2-hopper to the mound, 2 punch-outs, bang, let's go home.
Right.
I got news for you. Now, you have to be old enough to remember this. John Wetland, I know it was a long time ago, John Wetland in 96, he always walked the tightrope. Walk a guy, maybe a little more swing and miss than Clay Holmes here, but Goose Gossage, like we forget history, Goose Gossage gave up more home runs to George Brett in critical spots in the 70s and 80s than anybody. I mean, it's just... there's only one Mariano. There's only one Eckersley for those 2 or 3 years. Everything, even the Mets, the 86 Mets, you had a Roscoe, you had McDowell, you piece it together. This is not a perfect team. There's no way. And I'm admitting it. Yankees didn't go all in.
Right.
The Yankees did not go all in. But this notion that, like, the Yankees have or before these moves or before this little, 5-game win streak, that it was completely beyond them to regenerate, I never fully believed, because I do think that at some point you got to look at what a player's done and for his career. And as bad as Verdugo was, he's a 280 lifetime hitter. You don't forget how to hit overnight. And, I think that right now, all things considered, I think Yankees have as good a chance as anybody. I really do.
Would they have a better chance if Corbin Burns, say, were in their rotation?
Yeah, but they
could have traded Spencer Jones, and they didn't. So it's another mistake.
Okay, but
at the time, I said they should have done that. So if I'm saying that, then now, all of a sudden, Jones was available. Now, I don't know. We could ask Brian Cashman directly, but based on reports, Jones was available. Well, for what? Wouldn't you rather have Corbin Burns than even Flarity?
Go back to Flarity for a second there, because we use the term all in. So if we're sitting here now, we'll get to these calls. We'll get Cashman coming up, BT and Sal, in for Evan and Tiki. 888-808-1019 is our number. So if they got Flarity, and you have Chisholm, you have Flarity, you've got 2 higher strikeout rate bullpen arms, which they brought in.
Yeah.
Okay, that has happened, and that's something they needed to do.
I mean,
is it more of an all-in at that point? You have Flarity, and you have Chisholm, and you have the 2 arms they brought in. More all-in, pretty much, right? Pretty much?
I would say...
Close?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
But again, like to the point that we were arguing for weeks, it's ultimately going to depend on how the guys that they have here perform.
True.
And so all the same guys that all of us have been burying for 7 weeks, all of a sudden they figure it out for 5 games, and now it's like,
no,
everything's
it's not 5.
Right.
It's not 5. Because if this was a 4-month journey of ineptitude, guess what? The Yankees at this point would be the Marlins. They're not. But there's a reason why they got 60 wins, because the guys that we worried about that had this, I agree, this frightening, alarming drop-off in performance were the same guys who were carrying the mail for the first 2 months.
Right, but what if they have that drop-off again?
But that's baseball.
I know, but that's why we wanted them to change, or you at least wanted them to change the significant pieces.
But Chisholm changes Chisholm, and not just because, listen, he's not going to hit 40 home runs this year, but they needed somebody in that place that Chisholm's in. And to me, his dynamic nature.
He's a good ball player, his energy, his personality,
changes everything. Yeah. And the thing, that's why I asked you specifically, Sal, like, if they would have gotten Flarity, would it have come across as more all-in? And I asked that for a reason, because we'd be sitting here and we say, Yankees, wow, all-in, what a move. And then, let's say in 2 weeks, the medical report that apparently the Yankees were terrified, which is why they were very reluctant and eventually did not do the deal with the Tigers for him. What if it comes back and it spits out something and he's on the shelf for 5 weeks? So I know that we want to grade things immediately. We are, especially now, everything's sped up. There's no, I'll kind of come back to you next week and tell you what I think. Trust me, we're in the opinion business. The Yankees, and it is right now my opinion that the Yankees are good. And right now, you take that.
But this is a pattern here of lack of all-in from Brian Cashman and the Yankees. All right, fine. You didn't like Flarity. You didn't love that? Then they should have traded for Corbin Burnes. In the beginning of the year, that would have been all-in. You get Juan Soto, the best bat available. You get Corbin Burnes, the best arm available. And you do it for Spencer Jones, who's insignificant this year anyway. You go out there and try to win a World Series. Now, at the time, you would have had Cole and Burnes. Find me a better 1-2 punch than that. Cole, obviously not the same. Got hurt the majority of the year, trying to work his way back, dealing with the fatigue. Yep. But you'd have Corbin Burnes right now. And then you'd have the possibility of Luis Gil or whoever else in that rotation you want to trust, Stroman or Rodon, whatever. But that would have been an all-in move, and then they wouldn't have needed to go get Flarity now. So and this is not just this year. This has been the pattern for the Yankees. Again, going to rely on Volpe and his inconsistency, Verdugo and all the guys we just mentioned. LeMahieu, you're still looking at, LeMahieu, it's a home run. All is well now. Is it? Again, could they win the World Series? Absolutely. As good a chance of everybody else. But they could have gone even further into being a loaded team, much like the Dodgers seem to do every single year. And even the Padres, the Padres haven't won anything, but at least they go for it every year.
Well, by the way, I mean, how many conversations have you and I, just in the year that we've worked together, had about Cashman? Right. So, no. This is not to absolve him of what I perceive to be a litany of mistakes over the years. And we'll talk to Brian coming up in about 7-8 minutes here on the Fan. BT and Sal sitting in for Evan and Tiki, as I said. But I also look at it this way, too. You know, my biggest gripe with him has been the need year after year after year, despite this payroll. You know, here we are, late June, early July, mid-July. All right, what are we going to do to fix the Yankees? You know, it shouldn't be that way all the time. And most of the years, they didn't do anything remotely enough, mid-correction, if you will, to put them on a path to a championship. This year, I think they did. And the answers are down the road, and we'll see what happens. But it is looking forward to talking to Cash. Looking forward to talking to you. Let's get first up Rob in Ronkonkoma. He is on the Fan with BT and Sal. What's up, Robbie?
Nothing much. I know you guys were going to bring up that guy Flarity, but I don't know if you guys heard. The guy's hurt. His back's messed up. He's already got 2 injections. The Yankees signed him.
Oh, did that happen?
Like
we didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that, Rob.
I don't know, because you guys started talking about Flarity already. Like, why didn't we pick him up? The guy's hurt.
But why the Dodgers get him?
When we got
why the Dodgers get him? And by the way, Brian Cashman.
I don't know why the Dodgers got him.
Well, he must not be hurt. And Brian Cashman, and now we're going to ask him flat out, but Brian Cashman refuted that report that said the Yankees didn't get him because of the medicals. Now, I mean, could he be covering? Sure, I guess, but it's not just the point, though. That wasn't the only move to be made, Flarity. I mean, they could have taken on Blake Snell. They could have gotten Tanner Scott. And again, I'm not saying I would have done that. I'm just saying that those are all in typical Yankee moves that we were accustomed to. I mean, about, 20 years ago now.
Listen, I understand, and the 20 years thing is important because 20 years ago, the Yankees were doing business differently than most teams, right? And I think the one thing, and I know that it's not going to satisfy the demands of, we want a championship. It's not going to do that now. Understood. It's not going to placate fans who aren't thrilled. And I'm not saying it's a home run, but I'm certainly fine with where the Yankees are now. I get it. You want it a little bit more. But the business of baseball has changed so much that I think, and I'm not talking about payroll and finances necessarily, I'm talking about prospects and the extra wild card and how many teams are into it and controllability and what teams are willing to part with guys now versus tomorrow. Like, it's a lot more complex. And I think if we're going to react to the changes in baseball, I think we've got to also apply that to what team, not just the Yankees, but the Mets, to what they did or did not do. It's not 1995.
I agree with you.
It's very different.
I agree with you 1,000%. It's something I thought about a lot after the deadline yesterday, and I hate it. I wave the white flag. I give up. I understand why they're doing it. You're right, BT. But it doesn't mean that they couldn't go all in. And even though the model's changed, other teams did go all in and give up top prospects. So it's not like nobody's doing it.
I got you.
You're right, and I'm going to have to learn to accept this bull crap of sitting on your hands and talking about prospects.
I like the old days. I want to buy championships. It was easier.
But it's not even that.
No,
like,
no.
The prospects. Like yesterday, hey, you know what? Congratulations to the New York Mets. Because it seems, BT, they won the Prospect World Series. Because the only thing everybody was talking about yesterday was that, the Mets didn't even give up a top 15 prospect. But in some spots, it was they didn't give up a top 20 prospect. And in other spots, it was they didn't give up a top 23 prospect. So nobody knows anything about the prospects. Nobody's in unison about who these guys are, where they rank, or what they're going to be. But the good news is the Mets held on to all their top guys. So here's my message to the Mets for holding on to all their top guys. You better hope and pray that every one of those guys hit. Because if you fall short, which you will, of winning a World Series yet again, it's going to be on your ass for holding on to these guys who are likely 80% of them at minimum are going to be stiffs in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
prospects.
I mean, yeah.
They held on to the prospect.
Well, I'll tell you
it used
this,
to be,
though.
this is what this guy get. Wow, you got the best pitcher available. Now it's, they held on to their prospects. They got a crappy bullpen arm. That was with the Long Island Ducks a couple of weeks ago. But they held on to their prospects.
The Duck. 888-808-1.
We'll get to the Mets later.